is Monday. That means time to chat with Adam Terry, and a few more days to digest this time around, Adam. But, that went wrong every which way possible Thursday night. How tough of a game is that one to bounce back from when it all went sideways like it did so quickly?
Well, I think it's a situation where you've just got to move on. You get 24 hours. In the NFL, it was always 24 hours, move on to the next game, get prepped and ready, because you're going to have a viable Virginia Tech Hokies coming into the Dome, and that's your next one. I mean, this is one where you leave the stadium. I mean, hopefully you've left every bad aura or any type of witchcraft that comes with you. You just kind of leave it to the side and you walk out the door and you're moving on to the next game, because that is just a tough pill to swallow.
I'd say some of it almost did feel like witchcraft or Halloween, the trick, not trick or treat, just tricks. Like, what do you make? All right, one pick six, okay, but when it happens literally 3 times and a half, and some of them are tipped and this and that, what do you make of what was going on to lead to all of that happening at once?
Well, the first one you look at, and you're watching it up there, and I think it was just a great play. He undercut the route and did a fantastic job on that out route. The second one, you're sitting there, you're scratching your head, and you're going, okay, this is going to go downhill real quick. I mean, that was the Christmas gift, bounces off Arande's hands, pops in the hands of number 30, and you're like, oh, okay, we're still in it. And I kept saying it on the broadcast, we're still in it. This is a good opportunity. You just got to get one back. And then that's where pressure started to mount, as far as not on Kyle McCord, but in a situation where the offensive line was giving up a little bit of pressure. The blitzes were starting to hit home and distracting the quarterback. And, that was kind of the next one where, pressure off the blind side. They bait him. Number 9 just jumps up underneath the route of Arande. And, that's the next one. And another one, same thing, pressure coming off the edge. Kyle's got to step up and make a throw. So you look at it, and as far as our defense against Pitt's offense, I thought they did a pretty good job. But our offense against their defense was a little bit better than I saw on film, and they were capable of undercutting routes and getting to the quarterback. You knew that they under the situation that you knew they were going to come in, they were going to blitz you, and how they were going to build it was not exotic, but they were going to build it off of a three-man, 4-man, and bring more than what you had, and you had to get that ball out quick. So it was a Pat Narduzzi-led defense, and that's what you expected, and that's what occurred. And the ball literally bounced their way in a couple instances.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what they do. I mean, they were just loading guys up at the line of scrimmage, and I think a lot of times right before it came, you just had no idea who was coming and who wasn't. They play that press coverage on the outside. It's very Pittsburgh, right, what they do. How we look at Virginia Tech and going forward here, obviously other teams will look at that and say, wow, that worked. How many teams are capable of that, or is that very specific to how Pittsburgh plays defense?
Well, if you look at what Pittsburgh did, I mean, it's specific to their scheme, right? They're going to get after you. They're going to play man coverage. They're going to bounce around in zone every so often. But for the most part, the discomfort in the pocket as the game wore on was very evident. So, as things started coming, at the beginning of the game, I thought they were doing a heck of a job up front, being able to pick up and see how the manipulation of the defense was going to be brought in a blitz. But as the game wore on, it just became pretty evident that they were bringing it from everywhere, and you've got to be able to pick that up. And then seeing Kyle a little bit more uncomfortable with passes or with rushes off the edge. He's trying to spin. He's trying to make some stuff happen, and it just wasn't there. But, looking forward against a team that is a very viable candidate in Virginia Tech, you've just got to be able to go into it and leave the demons behind and move on to this next one in order to salvage the confidence, right? This isn't salvaging a season or anything like that. Mm-hmm. It's just reinstituting the confidence back in the quarterback, back into the offense. And throwing the ball 64 times, you've got to be able to get a run game going. And that, my takeaway with that was kind of the biggest one. It's like, hey, you need to be able to run the football in order to not sling it. But this season we've put a lot on Colin McCord's shoulders, and this time it just didn't come through.
Yeah, and we kind of saw Fran giving him the pep talk there after, I guess it was the third pick six. I mean, it was just a shocking first half there, and then Fran kept him in the rest of the way. The game's over for the most part. What do you make of the decision of, I guess it's right, Fran showing confidence in his guy and trying to build him back up versus what probably was scaring all of us because we're so used to seeing Q's quarterbacks go down. What's the balance there of keeping a guy in to build him back up versus keeping him upright for the rest of the way?
Yeah, I was most concerned with injury, right? You have a bad game, but you don't want to knock a quarterback out. And for the past, 5 to 8 years, quarterbacks at Syracuse haven't really finished a season, or they haven't played every game during a season. So when it started getting out of hand, I thought that he would be removed. But to Fran's credit, he let him, and he's got to go out and exercise the demons and battle it out and be the leader that he needs to be, because this is a learning experience, and hopefully it doesn't happen again.
I think part of it too, Adam, the thought is we all have these terrible memories, right, of seeing, Garrett Schrader recently and these other guys go down. Eric Dungy had 3 of his 4 seasons ended with injury. Fran seems to, I guess, be blissfully unaware of that, right? He has no interest in the negative recent history that's gone into those things. How interesting is that from his perspective, that I guess he doesn't have to deal with that stuff that we dealt with for all those years?
Sure. I mean, I look at it, and ignorance is bliss. What happened in the past is the past to him. Mm-hmm. And, what he's looking at right now is a guy that, if protected well, stays in the pocket, can move around in the pocket. And there's not a lot of, hey, he's going to be a quarterback that needs to run around in order to move the football. And that with Dungy and Schrader, that historically has been the status quo, is you have to move as a quarterback to, 1, move the pocket, but 2, also make sure that you're getting some yardage in the run game. So this is a vast difference from what we've seen in the past. And Fran doesn't know any better than what occurred in the past is the past. His motto is 10 toes down, what you're doing today and who you're with today, and that's what it is. So I like the ability for Syracuse to bounce back, because it was not a great day, and you got to move on from that.
And as you said, Virginia Tech's coming up next. Adam Terry with us, our weekly Monday visit. You mentioned the defense, Adam. It got completely lost in the shuffle based on everything that went sideways on offense. Marlo Wax's return, and he didn't just return. He played basically every defensive snap. It was just a few. What did you make of the defense, and specifically seeing Marlo back out there?
Well, I mean, you look at what they're capable of doing, and I thought they did a pretty good job. You're only giving up 108 yards passing to Eli Holstein. You put him out of the game. There was some physical hitting. But the one this is kind of where everybody has to take in perspective. It's a game of inches. When that ball goes deep down the field, and you're looking at a guy being able to catch the ball, split the defenders, and this is Raphael. The ball goes deep down the middle. You've got Rashard Perry, who beats his guy late. He's bearing down on the quarterback. Holstein steps in, delivers a strike down the field in between Cinco and Deuce Chestnut. You're like, oh, okay. It is a game of inches, because if it's one click slower, that ball is either picked and run out of the end zone, or that ball is batted down. Instead, you see the ability for Pitt to deliver a strike down the field. But, besides that, I wasn't impressed. I was excited to see a guy like Desmond Reed be able to run the football. The dynamic, smaller guy reminds me more of a Darren Sproles, and the ability for him to get loose in space. But yeah, I thought they did pretty well. And Marlo Wax only having 2 tackles in this, okay, cool. Those numbers will build later on, but it is a situation. It was good to see him back out there. And even just going down, I went down on the field and I started watching the warm-ups, and you could feel the energy off of him. And then, right next to that is a bunch of NFL scouts making sure that they see how he's moving, see how the interaction is with the teammates. And it was just it was good to see him, a Baltimore guy, get back out on the field.
Yeah, and there's some interesting decisions, right, that Fran had to make at Elijah Robinson because, Marlowe had that green dot communication helmet to start the season. Justin Barron's done it ever since. Then Justin came down to linebacker. Justin, it looked like, right, he both had the green dot and stayed essentially playing a linebacker role last game. How do you see that mesh going forward as we talk about a lot, they're figuring out ways to get their best guys out there on the field?
Yeah, that's why they get paid the big bucks. I think that's where you've got to figure out who's healthy, who's not healthy, and it looks like right now defensively they're pretty healthy. But you've just got to make sure that as Elijah Robinson and Fran Brown really gets that defense dialed in, like you're saying, make sure that you match up well and you get your playmakers in there because you are going to need some turnovers going down the stretch in order to swing this thing back. And whether that's pass rush and pop a ball loose or whether that's pressure and that leads into an interception on the back end, those are things that are necessary in the game of football. And we just saw when Pittsburgh did it to us, it was a lopsided affair.
You don't lose turnovers 5-zip, have certainly the 3 pick sixes and points off turnovers were 31-0 and come out of it with anything resembling a good result as we got Adam Terry with us. How important is this week, Adam, in the idea of avoiding the here we go again thoughts? We've talked about it from Fran's perspective. Obviously, half the team, give or take, was here the last year and some went through it the year before where it kind of slid toward the end. How important do you put this week in that realm of things?
The luxury is, and what we just talked about, is Fran Brown doesn't have those. It's not the fear of this tailspin or slide. He's coaching to the next game, next series, and whoever's going to be on the roster at that point as far as health goes. So I'm excited about it. I think, we are a little bit traumatized with this landslide of starting out good and then everything goes into this tailspin. But different coaching staff, different mentality, different players in a lot of scenarios. And I think having a first-year coach that's trying to build a culture and establish something just bodes well for the whole team going into the rest of the season.
You look at this Virginia Tech team here, Adam. Right out the chute, they lost to Vanderbilt, and at the time it was like, oh my goodness, what a terrible loss. In hindsight, clearly not the case. Vandy's playing very well right now. We kind of see Virginia Tech building the last few weeks. They just beat Georgia Tech and blew out Boston College the week before. What have you noticed with this team and their growth from the start of the year? And a year they got rocked a little at the beginning, and now they're starting to look like I think who we thought they were.
I mean, the expectation was high coming out of Blacksburg, and I think you wax and wane, and you go through these ups and downs of it. And they're in a situation right now where they're trying to kind of reestablish themselves. They're 5-3 coming into the Dome. They can go 6-3, and really, I think both teams are out of the college playoff picture. But it is a situation of like this is recruiting ties. This is the ability to continue to build a program. And just look at Virginia Tech and their storied past. Like that's what they're trying to reestablish. And Syracuse and their storied past is a little bit further removed. So, VTech is riding this wave of expectation and getting everybody going and in order to catapult themselves back into what they believe they should be into. And also right now it's kind of that jockeying for position of, we don't know how this landscape of college football is going to pan out, and everybody wants to be, have a lot of wins and be in a situation where if this revenue share split, whatever occurs that people are talking about, everybody is in that realm of possibility and they're not left out.
Yeah, lastly, Adam, I guess that this goes into that idea a little bit, but, Fran and the team, I think from Fran on down, they've talked so often about, hey, we want to chase conference championships and, win this and that. And realistically, as you said, that's not in the cards this year anymore. How do you think Fran, if at all, adjusts that messaging going forward with his team for the rest of the way?
I think the way that we always talked about it was, especially in the NFL, it was, win your division, win the conference, get yourself into a situation where you can play in that big game. But there's steps along the way, and for Syracuse, I imagine, you start the season, you want to be 12-0. But you also have a certain expectation of where you think you can finish. And that's what they're going down right now. And what they're trying to do is win as many games as possible, but then also get into a bowl game that is visible for recruiting. And also, the way that the landscape is now is not just recruiting, but you want to be in a good bowl game in order to have alumni come back, because they're the ones that are stroking the check for a lot of these players to be, paid the way that they're paying within this NIL landscape.
Kyle McCord's got to play well the rest of this year so they can figure out who their quarterback next year is going to be. That's the funny world of college football these days. All right, man. Good to chat as always. Enjoy it Saturday. We'll talk again next Monday. All right.
All right. Sounds good.